Okay, everybody, welcome back. This week on Main Street, we are excited to have Ralph Celebri, who is a co-owner of Basil Bandwagon Natural Markets and a registered herbalist, and just an amazing resource in the community. Not only Ralph and Sue and their team and their brand, just an amazing group who's always giving back, always finding ways to support the community that they've raised their children in. And we thought it would be so awesome to bring Ralph on today to talk a little bit about, his story and the Basil story and where things kind of are at today and how we got there. So Ralph, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Eric. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak to your people and the community at large.
That's awesome. So tell us, you guys have a pretty unique story. Tell us, how did this whole Basil thing start? Kind of run us through.
Well, the financials of it are interesting because, in 1993, it was a $25,000 home equity loan and line of credit and about $12,000 saved to start the thing financially. But the roots of it go back before that. Basically, it started out of a real interest in medicinal plants. And I had worked for a wholesale natural foods distributor in the early 80s. In 1981, I started there, and of the type that virtually doesn't exist anymore, very small mom and pop kind of operation. And besides getting to visit many of the stores in the tri-state area, in my little old step van, which I utilized for the company and delivered as an owner-operator, besides seeing a lot of stores, I also began to notice these 1-ounce liquid herbal extract bottles. And sometimes we, the workers of the company, would get to bring home the broken paraphernalia from the products from the warehouse. And it was really fascinated by the idea that you could put the essence of a plant into a 1-ounce bottle. And so that spurred me on to study medicinal plants on my own and really, dig into that subject matter, which I did for the next 10 years and beyond. But that came out of an interest in the natural world and backpacking and gardening and camping and that sort of thing and the outdoors. So all of that coalesced, and I started to grow medicinal plants in my front yard garden in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Tomatoes and peppers, and I had gotten some herbal seeds, threw them in there, and I'm harvesting tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, and all of a sudden I had planted this herb called nettles, sometimes called stinging nettles. And as I'm harvesting things, I suddenly begin to feel my left arm going numb and very, very, very tingly. And for a second there, I began to think, is something seriously wrong here? Am I having a stroke? And then I realized, wait a minute, this is stinging nettles. Oh, I get it. These plants are powerful. And so
wow.
that was just one of those moments where you really realize something significant in your life. And so don't misjudge the power of plants. Sometimes, people misjudge compared to pharmaceuticals, but they're very, very potent and powerful in their own special ways.
No doubt.
So the store opened in 1993, and 19 years later, after doubling in size twice, once in place in our little starter location in essentially the Ringo's Flemington border, and then a second time when we moved to our present location in Flemington, we doubled again to 6,000 square feet. And 19 years after starting, Sue and I partnered in the Clinton location. And so we opened that shop, which had been previously a natural food store called Sunflower Seed. And Edie was ready for retirement. We took over we bought the business. And, we had been serving the Clinton community for quite a number of years. So they were familiar with the brand. And that store has grown over the 8 years that we've been there, which we're very happy with, and it's a great town. We love the town of Clinton. And so, in 2019, we successfully, after a long, grueling construction year, we successfully in December of 19 opened up the Lambertville location. You know, Sue did an amazing job of designing the interior of that space, and has curated and done so much to make the business what it is. She came into the business as, you know, a 30+ year shopper of natural foods. 20 at that point, 26 or 7 year vegetarian, having come from a family of meat eaters. When she started out on her own in college, she immediately said, you know, I think I'm going to stop eating meat now. And so she's been shopping natural food stores since the 70s, and brings a wealth of that experience to the business.
That's super cool. And first off, kudos to you guys for,
we are now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was gonna say kudos to you guys for opening up a store, you know, 2019, just before everything that's gone on. I mean, in Lambertville, like, there couldn't be a cooler town in the country. Every time I go down there, it just seems like it'd be a perfect vibe for your brand. That seems really neat.
We've had our eye on Lambertville for a long time. Just never seemed like the right time for us, but finally, you know, that came together, and it's a beautiful thing. And you know, our staff plays a key role in all of this. It's always getting better and better and better, and you know, we really emphasize training and self-training with the staff, which isn't hard to do because 99% of them want to read about the subject matter and learn more about the subject matter, and pass that across, which is why you know, I really felt compelled to start the store to begin with, because I wanted to talk to folks about medicinal plants.
That's very cool. Yeah, you know, we were talking ahead of time before we got on the recorded version here, and I was, you know, sharing with Ralph a story. You know, having gone in the store, I live in the Clinton area, so that tends to be the place that I go, and just commenting on how helpful the staff was and how clearly the folks have embraced not only the products in the store but the lifestyle, and just were so patient and helpful and educational during a time when it almost was intimidating to talk to people. I think, you know, at a societal level, you didn't know, like, oh, should I say something? Should I not? It was just really a pleasant shopping experience. So, you know, obviously wanted to commend you and your team on that. And I also wanted to kind of build on something you said about the power of plants. You know, in our world, from the athletic side of the equation, so many, specifically endurance athletes, have started to adopt this plant-based lifestyle. You know, probably 5, maybe 10 years ago, endurance athletes were talking about the cardiovascular benefits associated with things like beet juice. And we're looking at kind of this kind of nitrous oxide type, you know, easier opening of the arteries, which of course is going to allow more efficient blood flow. And there was a decent amount of actually evidence behind it. So it sounds like you were a bit ahead of your curves from this power of plants movement. So I thought, you know, as it relates to the Rise community and certainly the people kind of, as we say, on Main Street that follow our brand and our athletes, maybe you could give us some insight on some herbs, spices, you know, things power of plants oriented that maybe some of our folks should be aware of, that they're kind of maybe hot topics for you.
You know, when I think about that, I think, you know, the two things that come to mind most especially, that I think all of your people really could benefit from, and I don't think it's enough, it's out there in the mainstream enough yet. And those two things are the concept of adaptogens and and mushroom products. I think the latter is getting a little more popular, but adaptogens are plants that help the body. They have substances within them that help the body cope with stress. And that's physical and mental stress, the stress and the oxidative stress of running a marathon. You know, the mental stressors that we all know too well. So they act by working on the hypothalamus, which controls the pituitary, which controls the adrenals. So that whole axis, is benefited by these plants. And these are plants like Eleuthero Root, which used to be called Siberian ginseng. And for political reasons, they changed it, but it's now known as Eleuthero Root. Rhodiola, which you guys may have heard of, the Panax ginsengs, that is Asian ginseng and then the American ginseng. Raponticum is another one. So most all of these things can be used on a regular basis by most people, although the Raponticum, you want to use that rather short term. These are things that, make and help the body function optimally. None of them are stimulants. Although again, with the Raponticum plant, that one, a little bit of caution there, especially if you're a heavy coffee drinker. But the term adaptogen was coined in the 40s and 50s in Russia, actually. And it's aligned more with the Eastern concept of medicine than the Western concept of medicine, in that Western medicine is more mechanistic. It wants to fix broken parts. It wants to fix things that aren't working. Eastern medicine does have the concept of optimal function within it. So we're a little different there, East and West. So adaptogens are something I think every athlete, whether it's a highly trained athlete or a regular exercise person or a weekend warrior, we can all benefit from adaptogens. And the other category I mentioned were the mushrooms. You mentioned beets, and a lot of folks are talking about turmeric and using turmeric for their inflammatory conditions.
Sure.
But it is an amazing plant. I mean, turmeric. It's one of those desert island plants if you had to choose one herb, because it protects not just response and modulates that, but also it's cardioprotective, it's brain protective as well. So heart, brain, and liver too. Most plants that are yellow like that have some relationship to the liver, and that is a very bright yellow root. So this is something that I think that your folks can really benefit from, in the athletic community in general and the public at large. So back to mushrooms, though, we're talking about all mushrooms have deep immune tonic function, and that's because they have this substance called beta glucans in them. And there are different fractions of that, and even the white mushroom, the commonly sold mushroom in grocery stores, has beta glucans in it. Some of the more specific uses of mushrooms would be, there is lion's mane mushroom. It has specific cognitive function enhancement capabilities and brain neuroprotective capabilities as well. Reishi mushroom for deep immune boosting. Also, it enhances parasympathetic activity, like sleep. There is cordyceps. Cordyceps is one that the athletic and exercise community could really benefit from. So look into cordyceps fungus, lion's mane, reishi. There's chaga is another one several of them boost long-term energy burn. Chaga is great for modulating blood sugar, which with the epidemic of type 2 diabetes, it could be a very, very valuable asset. And mushrooms in general, they have environmental benefits too. They can be and have been used to help with environmental cleanups. Mushrooms tend to process as they grow, as the mycelium grow. They tend to process whatever they come in contact with and turn it into something else. And in the case of even oil spills, they've been utilized to help break down some environmental insults. So they have great capacity for the culture at large.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's funny, as you're saying this, I'm thinking about some coursework that I've done recently, specifically on plant-based nutrition. And it's kind of interesting because you had a perfect segue there into my next question. And it kind of starts with this idea that in so many ways, the environment kind of, I guess, Mother Earth has given us what we need in so many ways to fuel ourselves, and maybe heal ourselves in kind of coming back from some of these stresses that, life creates. And obviously stress can be a very, very good thing. It helps us to grow and develop and adapt. But certainly too much of any one thing can be tricky and challenging. But then you kind of went into this idea that mushrooms are going or can play a positive role in the environment. And I thought where we could go a little bit is, I know that that's also a big part of the Basil brand is, locally sourced, protecting the environment, really kind of making sure we're taking care of of the earth in addition. So it sounds like mushrooms are actually doing that to overcome some of the stresses that, oil spills, et cetera, that we may be placing on it. But tell us maybe a little bit about how adapting this kind of lifestyle, maybe some of the ways that it has a positive impact on the environment.
Definitely. When I think about that, first I think about locally sourcing things. Obviously, the very logical, less use of fuels. In terms of delivery of products, great distances is counterproductive to to our health and environment, whereas locally sourced goods stay local. But beyond that, I think about our farm. Sue and I have a little farm, and it's certified organic. What we do is we take all the food waste, all the vegetative food waste from the 3 basil bandwagons, put it into corn-based biodegradable plastic bags, throw it in the back of my pickup truck. I'm going to do it today, actually. I'm going to hit all 3 stores and pick up the compost. I love doing it. Bring it back to the farm, add hay, locally grown hay, add some manure delivered from local barns. That's a freebie, which is nice. And the food waste is the food waste. Mix it all together. It gets up to 150 degrees in the summer. It's 140 degrees right now, 135 or 40 degrees right now. I have several piles going, and turn it over with a Kubota tractor, and we make a black gold out of it. And we're in Kingwood Township, so we've got some marginal soil to begin with, but we've been there 10 years doing this heavily for 5. And it's turned the soil into something, and partly because of the subject we were just talking about, the mushroom complexes, the mycelium that grow in that rot, that grow in that mix of compost. And so we're taking 300 pounds of waste at least a week, adding some inexpensive hay and some free manure, and we're turning it into black gold, what we call black gold. And so it's just been such a good experience to upgrade the soil and to turn it into a place where we're now growing medicinal plants. We've got about 40 to 50 medicinal plants growing, perennials. We've got some Eleuthero growing. We've got some Astragalus growing, which is wonderful. I've been trying to grow that, and it's been unsuccessful for several years. This year, from seed, this is all mostly 99% from seed. We've got about 8 or 9 Astragalus plants growing, which I didn't mention earlier. It is somewhat adaptogenic. It's also a plant that the exercise community could benefit from, because it's used in one of the traditional uses, besides as a lung herb, as a deep immune enhancing herb. It's also used for tendon and ligament damage, historically, traditionally in Asia. So there's something there for soft tissue damage that is common among athletes. With this herb that is also, actually it's one of the better tasting herbs, which, a lot of herbs are somewhat bitter or pungent. This one's rather sweet. So in any case, we're growing all these plants, skullcap and valerian, and 2 kinds of echinacea, betony, some ones that you may not have heard of, and doing it all by returning things to the soil, and it's just a nice cyclical exercise that's working
amazing.
with nature.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, it's just it's so clear to me that, well, one, you have a wealth of knowledge in this place, in this kind of space, I should say, and you clearly, transition that to your staff as well. And probably, well, certainly way too much to cover in a 10-minute, show here. But, as I'm thinking about the people who are going to be watching this, if they're saying, wow, like this is awesome, but it's too much to take all on at once, where would someone who, if they're just wanting to kind of dabble, and kind of get into this lifestyle a little bit more, going a little bit more on this route, where would you recommend someone start?
Well, when they have questions that are more complex, come into the store and talk to one of our wellness ambassadors. That's one way to start to get questions answered, and they're only too happy to help anybody with questions. We've learned so much from our customers over the years with the good questions they've asked, any question they've asked. But when it comes to the food part of that, where they may be starting to they may be starting to dabble, as you said, I would say they should start by looking at sugar and fat, protein and vegetables, and fruit. But what I mean by that is, be careful of sugars, even in a natural foods environment. Obviously, a lot of exercise folks are very keyed into that and how many sugars are in a product, natural or not. I could have added fiber to that list as well. Fat, though, is extremely important. Our brains are 70+% fat. Our neurons are extra fatty cells. Among all the cells of our body, our neurons are very fatty. And so eating good fat and treating the fat that you choose to eat the way it should be conscious of how much sugar. I mean, it's so addictive. There are very fortunate few of us who are not attracted to the sweet and the sugary, but
can't say that's me.
I know, me neither. But the fact is that the Mediterranean diet, I am a believer in that, where good clean sources of protein and lots of colored vegetables and green leafy vegetables, berries. We were speaking about inflammation before. The antioxidant and anti-inflammatory qualities of the proanthocyanidins and the other components of blue and purple and red fruits and all the green vegetables are key. So I would just say be conscious of sugar and fat first, and then be conscious of getting adequate protein and vegetables. And when it comes to protein, there are alternatives. Yes, you have brown rice and tofu, but beyond that, I think anybody who's trying to do a plant-based diet should be well aware of tempeh, which has the fermented quality, which is always so healthy for you. And now there are other alternatives to that. And the seeds, they have all the essentials to create huge, healthy plants. So they have a lot of life in them, those little seeds, and they have some oil. So they're generally better for you than grains. That's a place to start. I don't think it covers all the ground. But.
Well, I don't think we could ever cover all the ground in a brief episode. But obviously, there's just so many places we could go with this. One of the things I always love is when people have proponents of a plant-based lifestyle, they talk about their protein sources, and often people say, well, where am I going to get my protein if I get out of the kind of meat realm? And they often, rebuke that with, well, where does the cow get his or her protein from? Where does the gorilla get his or her protein from? They get it from the plants. But to me, the real, one of the major takeaways that I would encourage, certainly for folks seeing this who have not been into the stores, who have not actually spoken to the wellness ambassadors, when I went in there looking for some very specific things, the selection is out of this world. You guys have a little bit of everything. You can find some of these hard to find, herbs, spices, things that, you won't see in the traditional mainstream, but to your point, have a decent amount of benefit. And the neat thing to me is that it seems as though the research is actually catching up, that there is more and more of a not only belief, but support for this kind of lifestyle. So it's really been fun to kind of watch the evolution. and see it continue. And I guess I'll kind of ask my final question, which for you guys, you said 1993 founded, 19 years, open up Clinton, 2019, open up Lambertville, an incredible trajectory. And certainly we have kind of, when I say we, I mean everybody who's kind of been maybe a client or customer or just a community member has seen the Basil Bandwagon brand. I was a tongue twister there for a second. Behind so many good things that happen in this community, so many philanthropic, charitable events, we've seen you guys support. And I know that, us here, the Main Street team, the Rise community, as we do what we can to bring people together from a fitness component and then donate proceeds back out to charities, you guys are always sponsoring us. But all that being said, this evolution has been neat to watch. Where do you see kind of Basil continuing to progress, to continue to rise, I guess?
Yeah, we hope so. And basically, when Lambertville was completed, our goal now is to really concentrate on our Hunterdon County populace and close environs that they are of. They teach us so much. As I mentioned earlier, their questions have taught me personally so much over the years, because our customers are very educated and curious, and that's half the battle right there. So we hope they keep coming in and asking us questions, and maybe we can impart some education to them as well about whether it's an herb or a supplement or a food item. Basically we want to keep putting the message out there that got us started, which was an environmental ethic that, we are all connected. It is all connected. I think the research that you mentioned is going to continue, and it's going to go further. And we're getting closer to the understanding that everything is connected. There's not much separation. There's no separation between us and the bugs and the animals and the viruses and the bacteria. We're all living in the same milieu, and I think if we can pass across that the air and the water and the earth, we are the same as that, and that's how much we need to protect it, and that's how far we have to go to protect it, because it is us, and that's what we're hoping to keep inching forward towards that message, science-based as it is.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny because I think that message talking about us connected to the environment, and this concept that, we're all a lot more alike than we are different, is probably the most timely message that could be heard as we approach this upcoming election, and certainly a little bit of a, separation going on. So it's really neat to see. And it's also neat to hear that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Basil has roots in Hunterdon County, and from those roots, such good things are growing, and it's fun to hear a reaffirmation from obviously the leadership that that's where the focus is. And I can't tell you enough that, we certainly in the community feel so blessed to have you guys as a resource, and just appreciate, everything you guys continue to do and have kind of pledged to continue to do.
Thanks so much, Eric. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and thank you and your organization for not being afraid to bring people together so many different ways. Really appreciate it.
Well, I look forward to our next conversation, sir. I hope you have a very great day, and wish Sue the best and your team. And they'll see me in Clinton soon.
Same here. Same to you, Eric. Thanks so much. Great talking.
All right. You too. Take care.
Bye now.